Hello everyone and welcome back to True Words Aren't Beautiful. This video is a bit of a last minute addition to this week because I've been recovering from my last climb where I had massive sunburn after 15 minutes at the peak with my shirt off and just installing my tent there. One thing that I remember at the peak is how when I was scaling Russia's Mount Elbrus, how when you get past the clouds, you're 5,600 meters up in the mountains. The sun is shining and also reflecting off of the snow, so the sunburn is lethal. And I looked like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer when I came down from Mount Elbrus over in the Russian Caucasus. Likewise, when I was over here, not terribly high in the mountains of Mount Mugong, in La Union province in the Philippines, it still burns. But it was a great experience, and once again, just like my first climb at Mount Tirad, I'm reminded of a line from the movie Gattaca, one of my childhood favorites from 1997 with Ethan Hawke, where there's a very poignant scene where he's challenged by his supposedly genetically superior brother to swim, and they're racing to see who's better. And lo and behold, Ethan Hawke's character, a naturally conceived baby versus a genetically enhanced younger sibling, wins, because there is no gene for the human spirit, as the tagline for Gattaca stated. And when the character the brother of Ethan Hawke's character asked him how the hell he managed to win against him in the race, Ethan Hawke's character said, "I never saved anything for the trip back." And that is definitely how I feel going up a mountain. You really, really expend everything, scaling the peak to speak to the gods, whether you're climbing Mount Olympus or Mount Elbrus or even Mount Mugong, whatever it is, you put all your energy going to the top. And everything I brought with me, there were moments I said, did I bring too much? And yet, when I made it to the top, I was happy with what I brought because I was the only one who brought a chair, and it became a luxury up there, just like a lot of people were basically bartering for the disposable and biodegradable wet tissue for toilet paper. Yeah, that's right. There are no toilets in nature. There are only squat pits that people dig, or you go in the bushes. And yes, you have to bring your own water up the mountain. So whatever we brought was whatever we had, unless we paid a porter to go back down the mountain and bring us some water. So that sounds like an allegory for life, but I can't really correlate it to anything. Make your own conclusions from that. And the trip down the mountain is exactly what I think of when I think of that line from Gattaca, "I never saved anything for the trip back." That's because it takes more effort to go down than it does to go up. Yes, there was a lot of mud, there was a lot of path that I couldn't see. I mentioned when I was at the peak in my short video last time, you just had to basically feel around, but you just knew people had been going up there. Going down was harder because of how steep and muddy it was. So I crab walked most of my way down, facing sideways. And there was a point where one of the guides held out a rope so that I could get down safely. Had I been going down the mountain on my own, I don't think I could have made that descent right then and there. Which just shows me that no one can succeed totally on his own merit. We always get up because of other people's assistance or influence. Just like there are no self-made men, and it's not your fault. It's not wholly your fault if you're poor. Many times it requires a lot of humility and saying yes more. And part of saying yes more for me was taking a crap in a pit at the top of the mountain. A lot of people were laughing at me for not eating much and avoiding dinner because I didn't want to crap right out there in the mountains. And then I said, you know what? This is nature. I've used squat pits before in Tanzania, East Timor, rural Indonesia, all sorts of places. So what's the difference here? And we made a little joke about it. I screamed in pain and like a little girl, as though it was the most horrid experience in my life, all in good jest. And when I came back, I yelled that I was Gandalf the White, having returned from the depths of despair. Anyway, so when I came down the mountain, it's when I realized that that's the difference between a bucket list and just doing shit for the just do shit philosophy. When you cross off an item on your bucket list, you do it just once, but you do not embody the discipline for those things necessarily, especially if you don't continue the activities or the processes that helped you prepare for them. So, for example, if your goal is to run a marathon, and you prepare yourself for that, and once you run a marathon, but you don't really go back to that activity, yeah, you've had the experience, it's great, you decided it's not for you. That still is something good, you can celebrate it. And where the difference between just doing shit and crossing off the bucket list item there is you maintain the same discipline you apply towards preparing for a marathon towards other things. It doesn't mean that you're constantly training for the next marathon. It means that you figured out the right process that helps you prepare for a marathon. And you apply that to your next activity, where it's learning to dance, learning to paint, or learning another language. Because if you're like one of my dorm mates back in college, there's this guy Steve who, just for the hell of it, he decided to join the LA Marathon. This guy was not an athlete, was not fit in the least, and was a heavy smoker. And he ran the LA Marathon and wrote about it. He did it, and he got a lot of praise for doing it, but that was it. He never really returned to anything after that, and he doesn't even think about it except when he's trying to pick up girls at parties, saying that he ran the LA Marathon. So, when you begin the practice of just doing shit, don't focus on goals and achievements. Focus on the process and your personal development, and keep translating that discipline to everything you do in your life, even to things as simple as cleaning your living space, which is what I do these days, in spite of all the clutter here. Every morning when I wake up, I sweep, and I pat down all the mats and the pillows so the pet dander goes away, and I wipe everything that I can so that I have a place that I'm happy with. So part of the process, part of finding the right process as opposed to just getting the achievement. Think of it this way. When you were in school and you were checking the back of the algebra textbook for the answer to the question, does that really resolve anything for you now that you know the answer? No. Part of that is figuring out the process at how they arrived at that particular answer. If you have the process, but you don't necessarily get the right answer. My math teachers, would give me points for effort, saying, all right, you did all the right steps up to a certain point. Once you reach that certain point, there's something you're missing. We need to tweak that part where you're missing, and then you can arrive at the right answer. So I could get the wrong answer, but I could get 60 to 70% of the process by showing my work, instead of just giving them the answer. It's why if you just give them the right answer but you don't show your work, you might get half credit, but showing your work gives you full credit. If you show full work but get the wrong answer, you can at least get half credit too. And that is why I'm on pilgrimage. There are plenty of things I'm doing in this process that began last year, from my arts to my spiritual development. I'm translating that to something meaningful, and also something that can eventually sustain me throughout life, because we live such short and ephemeral lives. So why should we not live fulfilling our purpose and be joyous in the process? And one thing I've noticed so far is the inner eye and the big eye. Both of those are developing just swimmingly. Just to clarify what the big eye and the inner eye are, The big eye is something that my martial arts teacher would always talk about, which is what allows you to get perspective and instead of getting stuck in a frame. Whereas the inner eye is what uses that perspective to understand and empathize with those stuck in those frames, or those reality tunnels, as Robert Anton Wilson talks about. The big eye is the same as me climbing to the top of a mountain, just like you see in those old Tang Dynasty paintings. You see beautiful, beautiful depictions of nature, and humans are no bigger than ants. They're not emphasized compared to Western paintings. You'd see people emphasized, portraits. And this tells you where our minds are, especially in the West. So, I'll give you an example of the big eye and how that helps me get perspective once I leave my immediate environment of my neighborhood. There are some people here who are telling me that my pilgrimage is a ridiculous idea and I need medical help, whereas my therapists are the ones who are saying that these particular people telling me to get medical care and to go see a therapist are not qualified to give any diagnoses, nor are they qualified to give prescriptions. And it just so happens that these therapists are the ones who are encouraging the soul journey, and they've even contributed to, made some donations. So the big eye shows that this paradigm, or their reality tunnel that these people have, the ones who are criticizing my journey, they're stuck in their ways and they can't see, much like the allegorical Platonic cave. In case you don't know about Plato's cave, it's very similar to what inspired the movie The Matrix. So, imagine you live in a cave, and what you see as reality are just shadows dancing on the cave walls. You're chained to the floor, and all you see are the shadows, and you think that's reality. But once you exit the cave, if you manage to unlock your chains, you go out and you see reality, and you say, oh, this is reality, not the shadows we're seeing. And then when you come back to the cave dwellers, you say, hey, that's reality. They look at you when they turn around and say, you're crazy. This is reality, and they're pointing to the shadows dancing on the wall. So, when I see that, this is the kind of thing that lets me say they're just caught in their reality tunnel, and they're caught in this neighborhood's paradigm, which is imbibing, just getting drunk all the time and partying. These are business people who are out to make a buck. These are not people who are sensitive. These are not people who have the time or the dedication or the ability, if not ability, the willingness to make sacrifices and take risks, to invest in themselves and be better on an emotional and spiritual level or creative level. These are people who frame it as being practical. And I say, that's just fine. That's where they are. You have to meet people where they are. I had a conversation with someone recently who said, it's fine to meet different people. And it's fine that you don't agree. You just have to meet them as they are, because some people, bizarrely enough, they don't believe that people are nice for the sake of being nice. And you can't expect them to believe you're genuinely, sincerely nice. If you give them that, they will doubt it, and they will find every means possible to reinforce their idea that you are not sincere, you are disingenuous, which is what these people did to me. And when I see the emotional blackmail they've done, such as banning me from their cafe, I see that very similar to my own narcissistic mother locking me out of my own apartment before because I just didn't want to put up with her verbal abuse. When I say, don't talk to me that way, don't treat me that way, I deserve to be treated better, her response is to lock me out of my place and prevent me from getting my things. So, that level of pettiness and vindictiveness, this is where I look at my own personal development and say, wow, I'm really not upset, I'm not angry, I just feel sorry for these people because that's where they are right now. They see things as an insult, they see things as a personal attack, just when I'm trying to draw boundaries or live my life by my own paradigm, which is seeking joy and seeking meaning through this pilgrimage. So, the inner eye, in comparison, it shows me why, even when people are given paradigm-shifting information, that they refuse to accept it. The main reason is it's become part of their identity. It requires them to think beyond their self-certainties and processes. which in this case is not once talking with me, but talking about me to other people, also sharing their paradigm. And again, none of them are qualified. They are all the ones who say he needs meds, he needs to talk to a therapist. But again, I do talk to therapists. I have had several psychotherapists, and I also had my neuromuscular therapist, art therapist, and hypnotherapist. And these people are just coping through partying and alcohol. At the same time, even if I can perceive them and where they're at, the inner eye is also what tells me that this is the perfect environment for growth, because it tests my patience and compassion. Whereas past me would have just given everyone the finger and told me to go to hell, and cried about it and whined, played victim, but would never look at myself. This was also tested recently when I was on the way down from Mount Mugong, and I got a message from the boarding house saying that my dog Tsuki was taken to the vet because she got attacked by another dog. And instead of complaining about her and hating the dog that attacked her, what went through my mind was, oh, poor Tsuki, and I hope the other dog is okay too. The other part of my past self that would have complained about it would have said, oh no, this is another expense. Instead I say, I can take care of it, whatever the price is, because I love my dog. If you want to see more examples of the inner eye, it's something you hear in the Litany Against Fear in Frank Herbert's Dune, and you hear it in Little Prince. The inner eye is that which allows you to see things as they are, compared to the big eye that sees the frame. The big eye, in turn, helps the inner eye because by stepping back, just like scaling a mountain puts things into perspective, the inner eye allows you to not lose yourself in the details because you step outside the frame and then you remember that the frame exists. Even if you're not atop a mountain, you remember, yep, I'm in the frame. That's also life when you think about it, where sometimes we think we're waves, sometimes we think we're drops of water, but then we remember we're all part of the ocean. Anyway, so in a little while, I will be leaving to scale Mount Amuyao in the Ifugao province, the Ifugao region of the Philippines, rather, not province. That's near the Banawe rice terraces. Wish me luck. That is one of the most difficult climbs and will be about 40 kilometers up. So, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.